The blood of the innocent spelled their doom. The massacre that started it all. The Galactic Empire thought nothing of exterminating a small colony on the fringes of their dominion. They saw humanity as weak, scattered, and insignificant. When the order came to wipe out the settlement of Darnath-4, the Imperial officers executed it without hesitation. Men, women, and children were slaughtered, their cries echoing through the cold void of space. But what the Empire didn't know was that among the dead was the family of a warrior who would soon make the stars tremble. A vow of vengeance. Talon Voss stood in the ruins of what was once his home. His hands trembled as he lifted the charred remains of a child's toy, his daughter's favorite. Grief clawed at his chest, but in the pit of his soul, something colder took root. Hatred. He swore an oath, one that would shake the foundations of the Empire itself. The blood of the innocent would not be spilled in vain. The war had begun. Forging the resistance. Talon knew he couldn't wage war alone. He sought out the scattered remnants of humanity, pirates, mercenaries, former soldiers who had suffered under the Empire's rule. He became the leader of a growing rebellion, striking at Imperial supply lines, assassinating high-ranking officials, and spreading fear through the ranks of his enemy. The Empire dismissed them as little more than a nuisance. That was their first mistake. The ghosts of Darnath-4. Whispers spread across the galaxy. The rebels did not fight for territory, wealth, or power. They fought for vengeance. Each attack was precise, merciless, and left a chilling message, for Darnath-4. Imperial officers began to fear the dark. Soldiers hesitated before firing upon civilians. The ghosts of the fallen haunted them, and soon, fear crept into the highest echelons of the Empire. Striking the first blow. The first major strike came at the Callus shipyard, where the rebels hijacked a fleet of Imperial warships. It was the first true defeat the Empire had suffered in years. Talon stood at the helm of the stolen dreadnought, watching the flames consume the dockyards. "This is just the beginning," he whispered. "The Empire retaliates." The Empire could no longer ignore the rebellion. They sent their finest fleets, their deadliest assassins. Entire planets were raised in an effort to quell the uprising. But with every act of cruelty, they only fueled the fire of resistance. Talon watched the brutality unfold, his resolve unshaken. The Empire was strong, but they had made one fatal mistake: they had underestimated the will of the oppressed. The turning tide. As the rebellion grew, so did its allies. Other species, once too afraid to stand against the Empire, now saw hope in humanity's fight. Smugglers, warlords, and defectors joined the cause. The Empire, once unchallenged, found itself besieged on all fronts. The war had shifted. Victory was no longer an impossible dream. A trap set in blood. The Empire devised a plan to end the rebellion in one decisive strike. They lured Talon and his forces into a deadly ambush. But Talon was no fool. He had anticipated their move. When the Imperial fleet arrived, they found themselves surrounded instead. The trap had been turned against them, and the might of the rebellion was unleashed. The fall of the tyrants. The imperial capital burned as rebels stormed its walls. The emperor, once untouchable, was dragged from his throne. Talon Voss stood before him, blade in hand. "For Darnath-4, he whispered before delivering the final blow. A galaxy reborn. With the empire shattered, chaos threatened to consume the galaxy. But the rebels, now victors, vowed to rebuild. The blood of the innocent had been avenged, but their memory would guide the new order. Talon stood at the dawn of a new era, knowing the fight for justice would never truly end. But for the first time, there was hope. The price of vengeance. Victory came at a cost. The rebellion had lost countless lives. The weight of his actions bore heavily on Talon, but he knew he had done what was necessary. As he gazed at the stars, he wondered if the ghosts of Darnath-4 could finally rest. The legacy of the fallen. Talon Voss became more than a man, he became a legend. Songs were sung of his deeds, of the vengeance he wrought, of the empire he toppled. But in the quiet corners of the galaxy, parents still told their children the story of Darnath-4. A story of loss, of wrath, and of a single promise fulfilled. The blood of the innocent had spelled their doom. And it always would. The massacre. The city burned. The scent of ash and death choked the air, thick as the silence that followed. The Empire's soldiers had done their work well. They had stormed through the human settlement, slaughtering without mercy. No one had been spared, not the men, not the women, and certainly not the children. Amara had watched it all unfold from the ruins of her home, hiding beneath the bodies of her slain kin. Her son, only 6, had been among the first to fall. She had tried to reach him, but the soldiers had torn him from her grasp and cut him down. Something inside her had broken then, something that would never heal. The Empire thought they had silenced humanity. They thought they had crushed the last embers of resistance. But they had only fanned the flames of something far worse. Amara would not let their crime go unanswered. The blood of the innocent had been spilled, and for that, the Empire would drown in its own ruin. The gathering storm. Word of the massacre spread like wildfire through the outer colonies. Humans who had once cowered in the shadows now sharpened their blades. Amara moved through the underground networks, whispering tales of vengeance, of retribution. The Empire had underestimated them. They had believed humanity weak, scattered, incapable of standing against their might. But grief and rage could forge an unbreakable army. Amara found herself at the heart of this storm, not as a soldier, but as something far deadlier, a symbol. The mother who had lost everything, the woman who would take everything from the Empire in return. They would learn what it meant to face the wrath of those who had nothing left to lose. A blade forged in grief. Amara trained with relentless fury. Her hands, once meant for cradling her child, now gripped weapons with deadly precision. She learned the art of war, not just how to fight, but how to destroy. She would not simply take revenge, she would annihilate those responsible. The resistance grew, swelling with humans who shared her pain. They did not fight for survival. They fought for vengeance. The Empire had made one fatal mistake. They had spilled the blood of the innocent. And now, they would drown in it. First blood. The first strike came in the dead of night. Amara led a team of rebels to an isolated Imperial outpost. The guards were lax, unprepared for an attack from those they had deemed broken. The resistance moved like shadows, striking with precision. Amara's blade found its mark in the throat of the first soldier. The others fell just as quickly. By dawn, the outpost was nothing but ruins, its occupants slaughtered. It was a message. The Empire had begun this war. Now, humanity would end it. The Empire's response. The retaliation was swift. Imperial warships descended upon suspected rebel hideouts, raining fire from the skies. Entire settlements were wiped out in an attempt to crush the uprising. But the resistance did not break. They adapted. They moved deeper into the shadows, striking when least expected. Amara knew that with every atrocity committed, more humans would rise. The Empire's brutality was its own undoing. The war had only just begun. The turning tide. For the first time, the resistance struck a major imperial supply convoy. It was a daring raid, one that required flawless execution. Amara's forces ambushed the convoy in a remote sector, cutting down the escorts before they could call for reinforcements. The supplies were taken, redistributed among the starving human colonies. The message was clear: humanity would not bow. They would fight. And they would win. The assassin's gambit. Amara knew that to cripple the empire, they needed to target its leaders. She infiltrated an imperial command center, disguised as a servant. With a hidden blade, she struck down one of the generals responsible for the massacres. The assassination sent shockwaves through the empire. Panic spread. No one was safe, not even those in power. The mother who had lost everything had become the empire's worst nightmare. The empire's desperation. With their grip slipping, the empire resorted to even crueler tactics. They captured civilians, using them as bait to lure out rebels. It was a brutal move, one that forced Amara to make impossible choices. But she would not be manipulated. She led a daring rescue mission, freeing as many as she could. And for every life they took, she made the empire pay tenfold. The rebellion was no longer a whisper in the dark. It was a storm, and it would not be stopped. The siege of Valtros. The resistance gathered their forces for their boldest attack yet, the imperial fortress of Valtros. A bastion of the empire's might, it was thought to be impenetrable. But Amara had a plan. Using stolen codes and insider knowledge, they infiltrated the fortress. The battle was fierce, but the rebels fought with a fury the empire had never known. By dawn, Valtros burned. A reckoning. The emperor himself could no longer ignore the rebellion. He sent his most elite forces to hunt down Amara. But she was always one step ahead. In a decisive battle, she faced the empire's greatest warrior. The duel was brutal, but in the end, Amara emerged victorious. The legend of the mother who defied an empire grew. The fall begins. The empire was crumbling. Their forces stretched thin, their leadership in disarray. More planets rose in rebellion, inspired by Amara's fight. The end was near. The blood of the innocent had been avenged. But Amara knew the fight was not over yet. The emperor's fall. The final battle came to the imperial capital. Amara led the charge. The emperor, once untouchable, was dragged from his throne. There was no trial, no mercy. As he fell, so too did his empire. A new dawn. The war was over. The empire was no more. But Amara did not celebrate. She stood amidst the ruins, remembering those lost. Her son's face appeared in her mind. She had avenged him. But peace came at a cost. As the sun rose over a free galaxy, Amara walked away. The mother who had defied an empire had done what she set out to do. And now, she would rest. The spark of chaos. The empire, a ruthless galactic force, destroys a peaceful human colony. The blood of innocent men, women, and children is spilled, setting off a chain of events that will change the universe. The hidden legacy. In the aftermath, a lone survivor, a young girl named Lyra, escapes the massacre. Unbeknownst to the empire, her family has a powerful secret, one that could topple the empire. The return of the dead. Lyra begins to uncover the mystery of her family's past, discovering that her bloodline is linked to a legendary warrior known as the Baba Yaga, a force of nature feared by even the mightiest of the empire. A mother's vengeance. Lyra's mother, once a legendary warrior, returns from the shadows to avenge the massacre. The news of her return sends shockwaves through the empire's leadership. The rise of the Baba Yaga. The legend of Baba Yaga, a fearsome warrior with unmatched strength and cunning, begins to spread. The empire scrambles to contain the threat, not knowing that their doom is inevitable. The first strike. Lyra's mother launches a devastating attack on an empire stronghold. The blood of the innocent once again fuels the flames of war, but this time, it is the empire that is targeted. The generals gamble. The empire's best general, tasked with defeating the mysterious warrior, devises a plan to neutralize her. However, he underestimates the depth of the threat she poses. A family reborn. Lyra is forced to take up her mother's mantle, guided by her teachings. As she becomes a skilled fighter, the Empire's forces grow more desperate to eliminate her. The Unseen Hand. As Lyra and her mother wreak havoc across the Empire, a shadowy figure known only as the Hand of the Emperor pulls strings behind the scenes, orchestrating a final confrontation. The Heart of Darkness. Lyra confronts the Hand of the Emperor in a battle that tests her resolve. The truth about the Emperor's plans and the destruction of her colony is revealed. The Gathering Storm. The rebellion against the Empire grows stronger, with Lyra leading a growing army of survivors and former Empire soldiers. The once mighty Empire begins to crumble under the pressure. Blood and Betrayal. In a shocking twist, a trusted ally betrays Lyra, leading to a devastating setback for the rebellion. The Empire's forces launch a massive counter-offensive, threatening to wipe out the rebellion once and for all. The Final War. The stage is set for an all-out war. Lyra and her mother, now united, prepare for a final confrontation with the Emperor. The blood of the innocent has fueled their rage, and nothing will stop them. The Fall of the Empire. The climactic battle unfolds, with Lyra and her mother leading the charge. The Empire, weakened by years of conflict and internal betrayal, finally falls. The blood of the innocent has spelled their doom. A new dawn. With the Empire's fall, a new era begins. Lyra and her mother, though scarred by the war, lead the galaxy into a new age of peace, ensuring that the blood of the innocent will never be forgotten. The blood of the innocent spelled their doom. The massacre. The Empire's soldiers descended upon the village with no mercy. Innocent children, mothers, and elders fell before the merciless plasma rifles. Blood soaked the streets, screams echoed, but the galaxy remained silent. Humanity did not. In that moment, vengeance was born in the heart of a grieving warrior. A mother's fury. Among the dead lay the shattered body of a child, but his mother still breathed. Her name was Vera Kale, a former war strategist. That day, she vowed retribution. The Empire had taken her son, and in return, she would take everything from them. The hunt began. Awakening the resistance. Vera traveled across the stars, calling upon old allies. Once, she had fought for peace, now, she fought for vengeance. From smugglers to exiled soldiers, they gathered under one banner. The resistance was reborn, not to negotiate, but to destroy. The Empire's mistake. Imperial commanders ignored the whispers of rebellion. They saw no threat in a grieving mother and her scattered allies. It was their arrogance that sealed their fate. By the time they realized their error, it was too late. The first strike had already begun. The fall of Outpost 17. The resistance attacked with precision. Vera led the charge, her fury unstoppable. Outpost 17, a key Imperial supply station, fell in a single night. The Empire dismissed it as an isolated event. They were wrong. The fire spreads. One outpost became 5, then 10. The resistance moved like ghosts, striking and vanishing. The Empire finally understood, this was not an insurgency, it was a war. And Vera Kale was its beating heart. The Emperor's fear. The Emperor, once untouchable, now feared the name of Vera Kale. He sent assassins, spies, entire battalions. None returned. The hunted had become the hunter, and she was closing in. The turning point, a major imperial fleet moved to crush the resistance. But Vera anticipated them. In the Battle of Draxus Prime, the Empire suffered a devastating loss. A fleet of 200 ships reduced to wreckage. The galaxy took notice. Betrayal within desperate, the Empire turned to treachery. One of Vera's closest allies was turned against her. An ambush was set, a trap designed to end the rebellion. But Vera had been betrayed before. She played along, only to turn the trap back on its makers. The fall of the capital with momentum on their side, the resistance launched their final attack. The imperial capital, once a symbol of dominance, burned. Vera walked through its streets, remembering the blood of her son. The emperor begged for mercy. She granted him none. The new dawn, the empire was no more. Vera stood among the ruins, surrounded by the survivors of the war. They had won, but at a cost. The blood of the innocent had fueled their vengeance, but peace would now be their legacy. The legend lives on. Vera disappeared after the war, but her legend remained. Mothers whispered her name to their children, a symbol of strength. The galaxy had learned a lesson: never underestimate the fury of a mother. The blood of the innocent had indeed spelled their doom. A final whisper: some say Vera still walks among the stars, watching, waiting. Should tyranny ever rise again, so too will her wrath. The Empire's mistake would never be forgotten. And neither would the vengeance of a grieving mother.